Hello guys, this is Max here, and if you are seeing this, you are probably a $5 patron. If you're not, I'm very sorry. What we have here before me is sort of a making of or behind the scenes thing that I promised I would give people. Hopefully in the future it's going to be better produced, or perhaps I would need to sink some investment in it. But at the moment, I feel like most of my effort, most of my time and my editing especially, should be focused exclusively on making you guys videos. With that out of the way, I want to show you sort of my project for Metal Gear Solid 3, how it's made, how much of a mess it is, and how much I regret living. So let's get straight into it. The first detail you notice, and you will pretty much see this from most YouTube editors, is that it's all over the place, it's everywhere. Typically, if you have multiple people on a project, they'll have separate projects, they will edit scenes, render those scenes, send them each other, a master editor sort of puts it together. But in my case, I simply began the video from beginning to end. You can see the entire timeline of it from beginning to end here. One thing that you'll notice about this project, it's very ramshackle. In order to demonstrate that point, I want to show you the folders that the video takes place in. So I arrange all of my footage to the best of my ability. Shadowplay does this automatically. I have arranged everything in terms of games. So under base profile, which is the recordings of my emulator, MGS3, is contained all of the recordings of Metal Gear Solid. Now, I go from these, from beginning to end, completely in order. I review them completely in order. How I do that is I have a note. I have a series of notes. Right here. It looks like I actually ended up deleting them. Let's take out notes that I can compare to Metal Gear Solid 3, but no longer have, because I deleted them by accident. Here we have essentially how I structure my notes. I tend to simply divide them into segments that I can understand later. When I see prologue, I think prologue. Mission 1, Mission 2, etc. With Metal Gear Solid 3, that was more difficult, so I arranged in terms of bosses, so you'd have the fury, the end, the pain, etc. I have notes that simply commentate on like what I think would be funny, what I should have. I go down, when I am making the video, I try to have a narrative that I have in my head that I am scripting, but all these notes seek to advise me on those. So what I would be doing is I would be thinking, all right, after this scene, what do I want next? How can I explain the pain? So after this scene where I get caught, I'm thinking, all right, let's do the Ocelot scene. And then I go and I review the footage. I say, oh man, this Ocelot guy's scary. Maybe I should do this, show this scene, etc., etc. Then I check my notes. Say, do I have any funny jokes written for Ocelot in my notes as I was playing that I thought would be funny? In this case, in the case of this Ocelot scene, I did. So I incorporated that joke. You know what the joke was? It was, I came here to gesticulate for no reason. That joke. I originally didn't think of that when I was first editing, but I looked back at my notes, seen it, and decided that was funny. The next thing I want to go over real quick is my file structure for my videos. It's very interesting, I think, in my opinion. Let's go take a look at that, where I store that. I store them all on my E drive. It's dedicated to Adobe shit. I put it all there. I have a folder called Video Assets, and I store things according to like their categories. Resources is simply things I use every single project, which is impact sounds, dial-up sounds, explosion, green screens, anything I've used more than once I put in there. Here we have the awful file structure. You can see all these are MP3 files because that is the music I had to quickly replace. Originally, this video was going to have lots and lots of Nier Automata music. But then I realized Square Enix hates life, and they were going to copyright strike me for all of them. So I quickly dumped a bunch of MP3 files that I thought would be good replacements, and then I just used those. I didn't categorize them. Now, what I have is a bunch of categories. So I have assets. Assets is where I dump random images that I need. There's no way to categorize them. This is miscellaneous. We have Donkey Kong, Jesus, Giga Chad here, which I don't think I used, Pearl from SpongeBob. And when the file becomes too big, when I say, okay, I can't figure this out anymore, I have to keep searching, I have to keep spending time searching for the stuff that I'm adding, I make another assets folder. That's where assets 2 is. You can see the assets used in these folders for the first part of the video, then the second part of the video, etc., until we get to assets 3, and I finished off there. The same can be said for voice lines, although it's a little different. This is the voice lines folder. The voice lines folder classifies everything in order. So A1 is going to be earlier than E27. I also classify things that I don't record into the characters. So we have the boss, the fear, the pain. These are all voice lines sent to me by other people. Here are my voice lines. I have hundreds of my voice lines. I start off and I say A1. My next line is A2. Next line, A3. I do this until I have a few hundred. And when I get tired of scrolling all the way down to the bottom of the folder, then I have B1, B2. It happens until I'm at the hundreds. Then C1, C2. Get to 100, same thing. And I do this, it gives me a rough approximation of how many voice lines I have as well. They're all relatively in the hundreds, except for the last one. Finally, for every project, I have a meme storage, which is specifically memes about the game. And I will use this very occasionally. I try to use them a lot in the intro, etc., etc. With that out of the way, I want to describe a few things that I think are very, very cool things that you want to kind of hear about, or you might want to hear about as like an extra. It's sort of the making of. So what I do is I edit all the video, the whole video, all the jokes, everything. You know, I write it first, or not writing would be a big step. I draft them, and I create the lines that I want. So then I find the voices. You'll notice here when this is Beatzer playing the boss, and let's just look at the scene real quick.
That suitcase is full of bees, Snake. I'm defecting to the Soviet Union.
So that scene originally had me as the voice. In fact, I voice every character technically. It's just that my voice is muted. Listen to this. If I unmute this,
Suitcase was full of bees, Snake.
It's very similar because originally I voiced pretty much everything. And if I find somebody that I really like, that I want to voice this person, then I get them on board. And that is essentially how I do every single recording. Usually I keep them muted in case I'm going to sack them at some point. Maybe they can't do something. Maybe they stop. But essentially, yeah. So here we have him grab his penis.
Wait.
So a lot of my videos, after I watched a certain YouTuber named Bosch, B-O-S-H, Bosch, I realized that editing software is really powerful in very simple ways. My favorite technique for a lot of things is to make things seem fast by simply cutting the space between the actions. I did this for Ocelot's clapping, and it seems very, very, like, unusual.
Is it?
What you do for this effect is you essentially cut out every non-clapping frame in the entire scene, which just speeds up his clapping immensely. All I did was just make that one clap loud. And then I took these clapping scenes and I randomly mixed and matched them around. Some are played backwards, in fact.
It's illegal to clap in America.
That was not supposed to be a scene when I originally made this video. The clapping scene was not supposed to exist at all, but I was bored, so I fucked with it. I literally sat there and I just screwed with him, and it turned out to be funny. A lot of things happen like that, actually. In fact, half of my Left 4 Dead video is just me messing around with things like that. One of my favorite scenes in the whole video is Volgan's death scene. Because, to edit. Because, in my opinion, you will notice just how fucking long the Volgan sequence is. It starts at like 21 minutes. And all the way to his death is literally 2 minutes. You spend literally like 2 minutes of this 30-minute video, 1/15 of the video, fighting Volgan. I try to summarize it as fast as possible because I'm essentially attempting to abridge something that's very long in the game, or it feels long. In truth, it's pretty fun, but people aren't fans of the Volgan boss fight, neither am I. So when I was editing this, I got very, very bored. I got extremely annoyed. So when I finally got to edit his death scene, I found really, really fun ways to abridge it. And it was my intention to keep it like pretty short because Volgan rants in his death scene. I don't think you can tell from my video, but he does in fact rant. The first thing I did here, and somebody told this, they literally didn't know this was a cut, but this is a cut. How this works is I have this audio, which continues here, except this time it's a little softer and it has a few effects applied to it. I have this play over so that it doesn't sound like he's stopping, because he shouldn't stop yelling. He only stops as the lightning strikes him. So once he's hit there, he stops. And it sounds like he's being interrupted by the lightning. Let's remove this transition audio and see what it sounds like. Not that smooth. One thing I noticed in this project a lot especially is that there are a lot of times where you will have audio begin before the camera shifts. You will often hear somebody talk, then the camera will move. Only for a few frames, but it happens like that. In fact, this happens a lot in movies. This helps the viewer actually sort of understand what's happening in a lot of cases. I have this in very few spots, but I don't really remember exactly where they are. Generally speaking, though, it's really, really nice. People are used to it, especially movies and all. So we have Volgan here. That was a cut. Not everyone realizes that's a cut. It's just that I was looking through the scenes and I realized, hang on a second. Hideo Kojima copy-pasted Volgan's animation and the camera angle in a different, like... Let's look at this whole scene real quick. Just gonna take it up here, extend it. It doesn't cut like that. But I just noticed that these were similar, and I realized I can cut out half of the death scene if I just cut it here. Nobody seemed to comment on that like I thought they would. Probably because not that many people are familiar with this scene, but that is in fact a cut. Probably surprising. One last detail that I really want to talk about is just a funny detail. I like including little funny details like this. I was not aware that Ocelot T-posed. So essentially how the game works is this is a full screen patch. So sometimes things at the sides of the screen, the game doesn't think the player can see them. So sometimes you'll see funny stuff that you don't notice. Let's watch this.
Something very important. Did you forget about me? Because I have more...
Did you see it? You probably didn't, because I didn't. Let's go back. By the way, that is a normal cut in the game. I have to change the audio here. Ocelot is T-posing in this shot. Because the developers believed that the game was going to be in a 4x3 box. Or rendered as such. And so, when this scene was being made, Ocelot simply wasn't animated. Why would you animate him? And when you attach a... That's also, by the way, why this shadow is rendered so strictly. You can clearly see the barrier here where they intended for the game to be rendered and where they didn't intend the game to be rendered. I would have liked to avoid that, but this is PS2 emulation. They didn't render more than they needed. They didn't want to do more work thinking that people in the future were going to have like bigger screens or something. It makes no sense, right? And that's why Ocelot is T-posing. My favorite scene in the whole video is the credits. But these credits are not the original credits.
In the world who gave this...
This shot in particular was basically like, it took me about an hour of searching for songs before I decided on this one.
A time of based and cringe.
When heavens divide, I will see the choices within my...
I wanted a very specific type of song here. I wanted a song that sounds like Heavens Divide, or that sounds like Weight of the World. In fact, this scene was originally written, edited, to use the music Weight of the World from Nier Automata, because it was so perfect for me. It's a sort of orchestral, sort of somber, sad song with a big sweeping score that sort of drops when you can put the credits. Heaven's Divide is pretty similar to that. I'm pretty glad that I ended up using Heaven's Divide because it is an amazing song. But remember, Square Enix hates you. Square Enix wants you to die. They will catch you for using all their songs. That's why I'm never going to have incorrect summary of any Final Fantasy game. I'm probably never going to make an incorrect summary of Nier Automata because of that. I can't make any money off of it. Lastly, before I stop this sort of making of video or this like fun fact video about how the project works, I want to get into a few nitty-gritty details, but I also want to show you just how kind of ramshackle I consider it to be. One day this will probably come back to bite me, but these scenes are not planned. When I began the Ocelot fight, in fact, or when I was narrating it, I did not have a template for it, and that's probably for the best. You don't want to dwell too long in boss fights. They're not that entertaining or fun for you to continually hear about a boss's mechanics. You are mostly interested in the story. So here's the Ocelot fight as I narrate it.
So now it's actually time to fight Ocelot. The battle is actually fun, but is extremely dated by modern standards.
That doesn't sound that good, does it? That slipped me completely by until I was pretty much done with the video, and I was like, oh, whatever, I'll keep it. I say actually twice there, and that's not good. Don't do that. It sounds awkward. And that's one of the unintentional consequences of me. What I would typically do is I would open Audacity. So right here, I'd say, this is the narration of the area. I'd review it, obviously, but then I'd export it. So over here, videos, voice lines, E, something. I find it. It says, voice lines, E, something. Then I place it.
This is the narration of the area.
And then, by that point, I'm not guaranteed to fully, have an idea of what the whole scene sounds like. I would have to step back and
So now it's actually time to fight
everything
Ocelot. This is the narration of the area.
And sometimes I will simply record the next line without thinking about what the previous few were, so that I end up overlapping words because generally the same thoughts are going to be in my head when I create both of them. You have to combine a lot of subtle details when you're making videos like that. That's the most important detail, in my opinion. Everything is subtle, like a genuine layering of subtle details. There are four different little things in this.
Adopt communism. I will ensure that the government takes.
This is just me narrating. And if you just showed one image here that was not moving, it wouldn't be good. So what do? You show footage of a guy, then you slowly layer on another element, and you don't want it to be too visually complex, so obviously you don't layer on that much. And you mostly want to focus on what they're saying, so you don't. But even in that case, you sort of layer on a background music, you have all these things, you do a voice as well. You do the voice that hurt my throat for 3 days, you do that. For everything, there's at least a little bit. There are also a lot of things you can do in general that will make people think that you're a genius when you're actually just doing something very basic. Let's take the scene where Volgin is with the warped audio. If that just cut, if there was no, it seems a little worse. But adding just a very subtle detail of having a zoom out, just a very quick zoom, it changes everything. It makes everything seem nice. So that is generally what will make or break something for me. Along with just general pacing, it's very important, obviously. But if I were to judge the quality of edits, I would say I would judge a lot of subtle stuff. It takes time. Sometimes you have to force yourself, and it feels like it's annoying, and you feel like, oh, maybe you don't know how much is good enough. Maybe you should over-edit, maybe I should under-edit, blah, 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 blah. You gotta get a feel for what you want. So you do what feels natural. And you get better over time. That's why I tell people, somebody was like, oh, you know, how did you get good at video editing? Or like, what's advice for a YouTuber or something? And I say, like, you have to be bad. You let yourself be bad. If, like, I feel like if you do it more and more and more, you edit more and more, you feel better about it, you feel more comfortable, you do what you need to. So that's all that I can tell you about the making of Metal Gear Solid 3. I loved making this video. I would wake up and I would work on it like 6 hours, and then I do everything else in my whole day. I'd usually eat at the end of that, you know, I do this right after breakfast. Hopefully the next one is going to be very fun. And hopefully the next one is Cyberpunk 2077. Of course, I'm going to enjoy playing the game more than I will editing if it's good. Thank you all for watching.